December 4th, 1872. A cold wind howls across the Atlantic, whipping the waves into a frenzy. The Dei Grazia, a British brigantine, cuts through the choppy waters, its crew scanning the horizon for signs of land or trouble. Then they see her. A ship, sails tattered, drifting aimlessly off the Azores, about 400 miles east of Santa Maria Island. She's the Mary Celeste, a merchant vessel bound for Genoa with a cargo of alcohol. But something's wrong, terribly wrong. The Dei Grazia's captain, David Morehouse, hails her, expecting a response. Nothing. No voices, no movement, just the creak of her hull against the waves. His men board her, their boots echoing on the empty deck. The ship is abandoned. No crew, no passengers, not a single soul. The lifeboat is gone, but the cargo is untouched, the cabin's eerily intact. A half-eaten meal sits on the table. A child's toy lies abandoned on the floor. The logbook's last entry, dated 10 days earlier, gives no hint of disaster. The Mary Celeste is a ghost ship, her crew vanished into thin air, leaving behind a mystery that's haunted the world for over 150 years. What happened to the 10 people on board? Where did they go? And why did they leave a perfectly seaworthy ship to the mercy of the sea? Step aboard with me if you dare. This is a tale of the unknown, and it's only just beginning. Let's set the stage. The Mary Celeste wasn't a grand ship, but she was sturdy, a 282-ton brigantine built in 1861 in Nova Scotia, originally named the Amazon. By 1872, she'd been through several owners, a few mishaps, and a name change, but she was still a reliable workhorse of the sea. Her captain, Benjamin Briggs, was a seasoned mariner at 37 years old, a man of discipline and faith, known for his steady hand and sharp mind. He'd sailed the Atlantic before, knew its moods, its dangers. This voyage was supposed to be routine. Load 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol in New York, sail to Genoa, Italy, deliver the cargo, and return. Briggs brought his family, his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, along for the trip, a common practice for captains of the time. With them were 7 crewmen, hand-picked for their skill. A first mate, a second mate, a cook, and 4 sailors, all experienced, all trusted. 10 souls in total, setting out on November 7, 1872, under a gray sky, the Mary Celeste sails catching the wind as she left Staten Island behind. The Atlantic in late fall is no gentle beast. Storms brew fast, winds howl, and the cold bites deep. But Briggs was prepared, or so he thought. The ship was in good shape, her cargo secured, her provisions stocked for 6 months. The alcohol in the hold, industrial grade, not for drinking, was a volatile load, but nothing Briggs couldn't handle. The first few days of the journey were uneventful, the ship making steady progress eastward. The logbook, later recovered, showed normal entries. Weather updates, coordinates, the usual rhythm of a sea voyage. Briggs noted a position on November 25th, about 100 miles west of the Azores, with nothing to suggest trouble. The sea was rough but manageable. The crew was in good spirits, or so the entries imply. And then nothing. The log stops. 10 days later, the Dei Grazia finds her, adrift and empty, a floating enigma in the middle of nowhere. What the boarding party found only deepened the mystery. The Mary Celeste wasn't sinking. She was seaworthy, her hull intact, her masts standing tall. There was some water in the hold, about 3.5 feet, but nothing a pump couldn't handle. The sails were torn, some missing, but that could have been the weather's doing. The Atlantic in November is brutal, and the logbook mentioned rough weather in the days before the last entry. The ship's compass was shattered, its glass cracked, but that could have happened after the crew left, the ship rolling unmanned through the waves. The chronometer and sextant, tools for navigation, were gone, likely taken by whoever left in the lifeboat. That lifeboat was missing too, a single yawl that could hold 10 people, just enough for the crew and Briggs's family. So they left, but why? There was no sign of violence, no blood, no bullet holes, no struggle. The ship wasn't looted. The cargo alone was worth a fortune. So what drove 10 people to abandon a functioning ship in the middle of the Atlantic? The cabins tell a story of normalcy that's anything but normal. In the galley, a meal sits half-eaten. Bread, cheese, a pot of tea gone cold. The crew had been eating, maybe laughing, when something made them stop. In the captain's cabin, Sarah Briggs's sewing machine sits with a piece of fabric still pinned, as if she'd stepped away for a moment. Little Sophia's toys, a doll, a wooden horse, lie on the floor, abandoned mid-play. The crew's quarters are just as telling. Clothes folded, boots lined up, personal items like pipes and razors left behind. These weren't people fleeing in panic. They didn't grab their coats, their money, their keepsakes. Whatever made them leave, it was sudden, but not chaotic. They left with purpose, or so it seems. Theories started swirling even before the Dei Grazia towed the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar for an inquiry. The crew had vanished without a trace. No bodies, no lifeboat, no clue. The sea doesn't forgive, but it usually leaves something behind. Wreckage, a corpse, a shred of evidence. Here there was nothing, just a ship, drifting silently, her secrets locked in her empty cabins. The Mary Celeste became a legend almost overnight. A ghost ship, a riddle wrapped in salt water and fog. Was it mutiny, piracy, a natural disaster, or something stranger, something the rational mind can't grasp? We're about to dive into this mystery, piece by piece, and I promise you, it only gets stranger from here. Stay with me. The sea has a story to tell, and it's not done whispering yet. Let's walk the deck of the Mary Celeste, step by careful step, and see what she tells us. The Dei Grazia's crew didn't just find an empty ship. They found a snapshot of a moment frozen in time. A scene so ordinary it's chilling. Imagine this. You're one of those sailors, climbing aboard a vessel that shouldn't be silent. The wind tugs at the torn sails, the deck creaks under your boots, and the air feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. You call out, no answer. You search the cabins, the hold, the galley, and every detail you find makes your skin crawl. This isn't a shipwreck. This is a stage, and the actors have vanished mid-scene. Start with the basics. The Mary Celeste was in decent shape. She wasn't sinking, wasn't broken beyond repair. The hull had taken on water 3.5 feet in the hold, but that's not catastrophic for a ship her size. A good pump could have handled it, and the Mary Celeste had one, though it was disassembled when the Dei Grazia found her. Was someone in the middle of fixing it? Or had they given up? The sails were a mess. Some torn, others missing entirely. But a storm could explain that. The Atlantic in November is brutal, and the logbook mentioned rough weather in the days before the last entry. The ship's compass was shattered, its glass cracked, but that could have happened after the crew left, the ship rolling unmanned through the waves. The chronometer and sextant, tools for navigation, were gone, likely taken by whoever left in the lifeboat. That lifeboat was missing too, a single yawl that could hold 10 people, just enough for the crew and Briggs's family. So they left, but why? The cabins tell a story of normalcy that's anything but normal. In the galley, a meal sits half-eaten. Bread, cheese, a pot of tea, all cold but untouched by time. The crew had been eating, maybe laughing, when something made them stop. In the captain's cabin, Sarah Briggs's sewing machine sits with a piece of fabric still pinned, as if she'd stepped away for a moment. Little Sophia's toys, a doll, a wooden horse, lie on the floor, abandoned mid-play. The crew's quarters are just as telling. Clothes folded, boots lined up, personal items like pipes and razors left behind. These weren't men fleeing in panic. They didn't grab their coats, their money, their keepsakes. Whatever made them leave, it was sudden, but not chaotic. They left with purpose, or so it seems. The cargo hold adds another layer. The Mary Celeste was carrying 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, industrial stuff not for drinking, used for things like paint and varnish. It's a volatile load, flammable, prone to fumes if not stored right. Most of the barrels were intact, but 9 were found empty, not broken, not leaking, just empty. Had they been opened? Had the alcohol evaporated, or been drained somehow? The hold smelled faintly of fumes, the Dei Grazia crew noted, But there was no sign of fire, no scorch marks, no explosion. If the alcohol played a role, it wasn't through flames, it was subtler, more insidious. Fumes maybe building up in the hold, making the air thick, dangerous. But would that drive 10 people to abandon ship without a word? The logbook is the final piece or lack of one. The last entry, written by Benjamin Briggs on November 25, 1872, places the ship 100 miles west of the Azores. It's a standard note, coordinates, weather rough but not deadly, and a mention of sighting land. Nothing about danger, nothing about fear. 10 days later, the Dei Grazia finds her 400 miles east, drifting off course but not lost. What happened in those 10 days? Why did the log stop? Briggs was meticulous. Captains don't skip entries. Not when their lives depend on it. Either he couldn't write or he didn't have time. Something changed, fast and hard, and it left the Mary Celeste a ghost ship. The signs point to a decision, an organized one. The lifeboat was gone, the navigation tools were taken, the ship was left in a state that suggests a planned exit. But nothing explains the why. There was no storm big enough to sink her. The Dei Grazia sailed the same waters and survived. There was no piracy, the cargo was untouched, the crew's belongings unloaded. No mutiny, no blood, no signs of a fight. The Mary Celeste wasn't a wreck. She was a paradox. A ship that should have been fine but wasn't. The crew didn't vanish into the sea without reason. They chose to leave or something forced them to. But what could be so terrifying, so urgent, that 10 people would abandon a seaworthy ship for a tiny lifeboat in the middle of the Atlantic? This is the heart of the mystery. A ship that tells a story but hides its ending. The Mary Celeste wasn't destroyed. She was deserted. And that's what makes her so haunting. We've seen her deck, her cabins, her secrets. Now let's look at the theories. What could have driven the crew to flee? Was it nature, man, or something beyond both? The sea has a way of keeping its truths, but we're going to dig for them. Stay with me, the deeper we go, the stranger this gets. The Mary Celeste is a blank slate, a mystery that invites every theory, every guess, because the truth slipped away with her crew. 10 people vanished without a trace, leaving a ship that should have been their lifeline. No bodies, no lifeboat, no answers. The Atlantic swallowed them whole, but it didn't leave a single clue to point the way. So we speculate, we imagine, we chase shadows across the waves. Let's walk through the theories, from the plausible to the impossible, and see if we can find the thread that unravels this enigma. First, the simplest explanation: a natural disaster. The Atlantic in November is a beast. Storms can whip up without warning, waves towering, winds screaming. The Mary Celeste's log mentioned rough weather on November 25th, and her torn sails and missing lifeboat suggest she'd been battered. Maybe a waterspout, a tornado over water, struck, terrifying the crew into thinking the ship was doomed. Or a rogue wave, massive and sudden, could have swamped the deck, making Briggs believe they were sinking. The water in the hold, 3.5 feet, might have looked worse in the chaos, especially if the pump wasn't working. Briggs, a cautious man, might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat, taking the chronometer and sextant to navigate to safety. But the Atlantic doesn't play fair. A small yawl with 10 people, in rough seas, wouldn't last long. They could have capsized, drowned, or drifted until thirst and exposure took them. The ship, meanwhile, survived, drifting on without them. It's a tidy theory, nature's wrath, a captain's choice, a tragic end. But it doesn't explain the calm aboard. The half-eaten meal, the toys, the lack of panic. If a storm hit, why didn't they grab their coats, their money? Why leave so much behind? Next, the cargo. The Mary Celeste was carrying 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, a volatile load, prone to fumes if the barrels weren't sealed tight. 9 barrels were found empty, and the Dei Grazia crew noted a faint smell of alcohol in the hold. What if the fumes built up, leaking into the air, making the crew dizzy, paranoid, maybe even hallucinating? Alcohol fumes can be toxic, disorienting, enough to make Briggs fear an explosion. He might have ordered the hold open to vent the gas, then evacuated everyone into the lifeboat as a precaution, tying it to the ship with a rope to wait out the danger. But ropes snap, storms rise, and a lifeboat tethered to a drifting ship is a fragile thing. If the rope broke, they'd be cast adrift, unable to row back against the current. The sea would have claimed them, leaving the Mary Celeste to float on, her hold aired out, her danger gone, but her crew lost. It fits the evidence, the empty barrels, the missing lifeboat, the lack of violence. But it hinges on a lot of maybes. The fumes, the rope, the timing. And why no log entry, no note of the danger? Then there's the human element, mutiny. The crew, 7 men under Briggs's command, might have turned on him. Maybe the first mate, Albert Richardson, or one of the sailors had a grudge. Briggs was strict, a teetotaler, a man of God, maybe too strict for a rough crew on a long voyage. Tensions could have boiled over, a fight breaking out on deck. But there's no blood, no signs of a struggle, no weapons left behind. If it was mutiny, it was the cleanest in history. The crew might have killed Briggs and his family, thrown them overboard, then fled in the lifeboat to escape justice. But why leave the cargo? Why not take the ship, sell the alcohol, and disappear? And the crew's belongings, clothes, money, pipes were still there. Mutineers don't leave empty-handed. This theory feels like a stretch, a story that doesn't match the stage the Mary Celeste set. Piracy is another thought. The Atlantic in 1872 wasn't the pirate haven of the 1700s, but raiders still prowled, especially for a cargo as valuable as alcohol. Pirates might have boarded, killed the crew, and dumped the bodies, taking the lifeboat to escape. But the Mary Celeste wasn't looted. The cargo was intact, the crew's money untouched. Pirates don't leave treasure behind, and they don't leave a ship seaworthy. The Dei Grazia, some whispered, might have been involved. Captain Morehouse knew Briggs, and the salvage rights to the Mary Celeste were worth a fortune. Could Morehouse have staged the whole thing, murdered the crew, and found the ship to claim the reward? It's a dark idea, but there's no proof. No blood, no witnesses, and Morehouse's crew backed his story. The inquiry in Gibraltar cleared him, but the suspicion lingers, a shadow on the waves. And then there are the wilder theories, the ones that reach beyond reason. Sea monsters, some said, a kraken rising from the depths, its tentacles snatching the crew one by one. Or a ghost ship, a curse that spirited them away. The Bermuda Triangle gets mentioned, though the Mary Celeste was nowhere near it. Even aliens have been blamed, lights in the sky, a crew abducted by forces we can't fathom. These ideas are fantasy, born from a need to explain the unexplainable. The sea is vast, and when logic fails, the mind fills the void with monsters. But the Mary Celeste doesn't need a kraken to be terrifying. Her emptiness is enough. We've walked through the theories: nature, fumes, mutiny, piracy, the impossible. Each one fits some pieces, but not all. The Mary Celeste is a lock with no key, a riddle that defies every answer. What really happened in those 10 days between the last log entry and the Dei Grazia's discovery? That's where we're going next. The inquiry in Gibraltar tried to solve it and failed, but it left us clues, whispers of a truth we might never grasp. Stay with me. The deeper we dive, the colder the water gets. The Mary Celeste didn't stay a ghost ship for long. Not in the physical sense. The Dei Grazia towed her to Gibraltar, arriving on December 12, 1872. Her empty decks a silent witness to a mystery that was already spreading like wildfire. The British authorities in Gibraltar launched an inquiry, determined to unravel what happened to Benjamin Briggs, his family, and his crew. This wasn't just a missing persons case, it was a salvage dispute with money on the line. The Dei Grazia's crew stood to gain a hefty reward for rescuing the ship, but only if foul play was ruled out. The inquiry wasn't just about truth, it was about suspicion, and the Mary Celeste had plenty to fuel it. The hearings began in the Vice Admiralty Court, led by Frederick Flood, the Attorney General of Gibraltar. Flood was a man of sharp mind and sharper skepticism, and he didn't trust the story at face value. The Mary Celeste was examined stem to stern, her every plank and barrel scrutinized. The Dei Grazia's crew, Captain David Morehouse, his first mate Oliver DeVoe, and others, testified about the discovery. The empty ship, the missing lifeboat, the eerie calm aboard. They swore they'd found her adrift, with no sign of the crew, and towed her to port out of duty, not greed. But Solly Flood wasn't convinced. He smelled a conspiracy, and his suspicions fell hard on Morehouse. Morehouse and Briggs knew each other. They dined together in New York before the Mary Celeste set sail. To Solly Flood, that was too convenient. What if Morehouse had orchestrated the whole thing? Killed the crew, dumped the bodies, and found the ship to claim the salvage rights, worth tens of thousands of dollars. A fortune in 1872? The alcohol cargo alone was valued at $35,000, and the ship herself was a prize. Solly Flood ordered the Mary Celeste searched for signs of violence. They found a sword in Briggs's cabin, with what looked like blood on the blade, but tests later showed it was rust, not blood. They found cuts on the deck, marks that might have come from an axe, but they could have been old, unrelated to the crew's fate. The inquiry dragged on for 3 months, with Solly Flood chasing every lead, every whisper of foul play. In the end, he had to let Morehouse go. There was no evidence, no proof of murder or conspiracy. The Dei Grazia's crew got their salvage reward, but it was slashed, a reflection of the lingering doubt. The inquiry didn't just look at Morehouse, it looked at the ship. The 9 empty barrels of alcohol caught Solly Flood's eye. He theorized that the crew might have tapped them, gotten drunk, and turned on Briggs in a boozy mutiny. But the alcohol was denatured, industrial grade, toxic, not fit for drinking. And the crew's behavior didn't fit. Their belongings were left behind, their quarters orderly. Mutiny leaves chaos, not calm. Solly Flood also considered the fumes theory, alcohol vapors leaking, spooking Briggs into evacuating, but there was no sign of an explosion, no fire. The ship's condition didn't support a panic. The inquiry ended with more questions than answers. A 90-page report that ruled out piracy and murder, but couldn't say what had happened. The Mary Celeste was released, her mystery intact, her crew officially lost at sea. The aftermath was a slow unraveling. The Mary Celeste returned to service, but her reputation was cursed. Sailors whispered she was bad luck, a ship that ate her crew. Owners changed, captains came and went, but she never shook the ghost ship label. In 1885, her final captain, Gilman Parker, deliberately ran her aground on a reef in Haiti, hoping to claim insurance money. The scam failed, the ship burned, and her charred remains sank into the Caribbean. But her story didn't sink, it grew. Newspapers spun wild tales. Sea monsters, ghost pirates, cursed cargo. Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes, wrote a fictional account in 1884, J. Habakkuk Jeffson's statement, claiming the crew was killed by a vengeful ex-slave. It was fiction, but the public ate it up, blurring the line between fact and myth. The families of the crew never got closure. Sarah Briggs's mother waited in Massachusetts, hoping her son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter would return. They never did. The crew's loved ones, wives, parents, siblings, scattered across the U.S. and Europe, held onto fading hope, then fading memory. The Mary Celeste became a legend, but for them, she was a wound. A ship that stole their kin and gave nothing back. The inquiry's failure left them with nothing to bury, nothing to mourn but the sea itself. The Mary Celeste's mystery didn't die. It evolved. She became a symbol of the unknown, a cautionary tale for sailors, a puzzle for historians. Every generation picks at her story, looking for the piece we missed. Was it the alcohol, the weather, a human hand, or something we can't name? We've seen the ship, the theories, the inquiry's dead ends. Now let's look at what she left behind. Not just a mystery, but a legacy that haunts us still. The sea doesn't forget, and neither do we. Stay with me, we're almost at the end, but the Mary Celeste has one last whisper to share. The Mary Celeste didn't just vanish into the Atlantic. She sailed into legend. Her empty deck's a canvas for every fear, every fantasy, every question we can't answer. 10 people, Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their daughter Sophia, and 7 crewmen, disappeared without a trace, leaving a ship that should have been their home but became their ghost. No bodies, no lifeboat, no closure. The Mary Celeste is more than a mystery. She's a mirror, reflecting our need to explain the unexplainable, to find order in chaos. Her legacy isn't in the truth we'll never know. It's in the stories we tell, the chills we feel, the questions that linger like fog over the sea. Think about those 10 souls. Benjamin Briggs, a captain who'd sailed the Atlantic a dozen times. A man of faith and duty, gone without a word. Sarah, his wife, who'd brought her sewing machine and her dreams on this voyage, hoping to show her daughter the world. Little Sophia, 2 years old, clutching her doll as the waves rocked her to sleep. Where did she go? The crew, men like Albert Richardson, the first mate, and Andrew Gilling, a Danish sailor, hardened by the sea, trusted by their captain, vanished mid-journey. They weren't heroes or villains. They were ordinary people, working a job, living a life, until the Mary Celeste made them immortal. Their families waited, Sarah's mother in Massachusetts, the crew's kin across the US and Europe, but the sea gave nothing back. No graves to visit, no answers to hold. Just a ship, drifting silently, her cabins a frozen echo of the lives she carried. Why does the Mary Celeste haunt us? It's not just the mystery, it's the emptiness. She wasn't wrecked, wasn't looted, wasn't burned. She was abandoned, her crew choosing the open sea over a seaworthy ship. That choice, or whatever forced it, defies logic. The half-eaten meal, the toys, the logbook's sudden silence. They're details that stick, that make the story real and unreal at the same time. The Mary Celeste is a ghost ship not because she's cursed, but because she's a void, a space where 10 lives should be, but aren't. We fill that void with theories. Storms, fumes, mutiny, pirates, monsters. But none of them fit perfectly, and that's the point. She's a puzzle with missing pieces, a story with no end. Her legacy lives in the culture she shaped. The Mary Celeste became the ghost ship, the archetype for every tale of the sea's mysteries. Arthur Conan Doyle's 1884 story turned her into a sensation, blending fact with fiction until the lines blurred. Movies, books, documentaries, they all take a stab at her, each one adding a layer to the myth. She's been blamed for everything from sea serpents to alien abductions, her name a shorthand for the unexplainable. The Bermuda Triangle gets dragged in, though she was nowhere near it. The term Mary Celeste syndrome even entered the lexicon, a ship or place abandoned for no clear reason. She's a cautionary tale for sailors, a ghost story for children, a riddle for historians. Every generation picks up her thread, hoping to unravel it, but the knot holds tight. The sea doesn't forget, and neither does Cleveland or the world. The Mary Celeste's wreck lies off Haiti, her bones picked clean by time and tide, but her story sails on. Divers have searched the reef where she sank, hoping for clues. A logbook page, a bone, a hint of the crew's fate. They found nothing but coral and echoes. The Cuyahoga River, far from her final resting place, flows through Cleveland, a reminder of the waterways that connect us to her era. The Mary Celeste didn't start in Cleveland, but her mystery resonates there, in a city that knows the weight of unsolved horrors, like the torso murderer's reign. She's a sister to those mysteries, a shadow that stretches across time and place. What's left is the question. What happened? Was it the alcohol fumes driving Briggs to evacuate, only for the lifeboat to be lost? A storm, a wave, a moment of panic that cost them everything? Or something darker? Piracy? Mutiny? A hand we'll never name? The inquiry in Gibraltar couldn't say, and neither can we. The Mary Celeste is a mirror for our fears, of the sea, of the unknown, of losing everything in a moment. She's a reminder that some stories don't end. They linger, haunting us with their silence. So what do you think? Was it nature, man, or something beyond both? Did the crew drown in the Atlantic's embrace? Or did they drift to a fate we can't imagine? Tell me below, your theory might be the one that cracks this 150-year-old riddle. If the Mary Celeste has hooked you, if her empty decks call to you, stick around. The next mystery is waiting, and it's just as deep, just as dark. We've walked her planks, chased her theories, felt her legacy. This is where she leaves us. Not with answers, but with a shiver. What do you see in the fog she left behind?